Hey guys, welcome back to the Film School Dropout. I'm your host, Jordan Guillory, and I am a film school dropout, but remember, you don't have to be one to enjoy this podcast. This podcast is a safe space for creatives who are building careers that don't exist yet. The world is changing, so why shouldn't our career pathways? So, this week on today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about the art of conversation. So, this week, I've been doing a lot of yapping. Hence, my voice is a little hoarse. It's very easy for my voice to get hoarse. I've also been spending a lot of time outside. And not in a way of like, partying or going crazy, but like literally out and about, dilly dallying, exploring New York, spending time with friends, and yapping. So that's what brings me to today's conversation, where I will continue to yap, but just kind of speak to you guys about my thoughts on the art of conversation, the whole introvert extrovert thing, and how conversation drives business and art forward. Sometimes when we think about industries, when we think about corporate, when we think about creative, they feel like they're so different or like they're separate worlds. And in ways they are, but in a lot of ways they aren't. So let's get to chatting. This week was an interesting one. I am about 4 weeks away from graduating with my MBA from NYU Stern. There's a lot of moving parts, but something that was interesting about this week is how many conversations I had. And I've always been a person who likes to talk, and I've always had a lot to say. I might have been scared of sharing my opinion if I have to be fully vulnerable, which we've talked about in previous episodes. But as far as like expressing myself and being in front of people and talking, that's never been something I've been afraid of. Shout out to like the church programs, the speech and debate of it all, the public speaking, at your grandma's church, you go up and do your little speech or you recite a poem. Those things, are actually really helpful to be confident speaking publicly. Because whenever I had my first job at Meta after school, one thing I learned is confidence is key. Like being able to hold a conversation with someone is really important and something we always talked about because the team I was on at Meta was essentially a sales team. We had to hit quotas, we had clients that we wanted to spend a certain amount. And the big thing I remember in our training that we talked about is discovery calls. Discovery calls were really, really important because you had to know what your client was about. Who are they? What are their interests? What's their kid into? And those are the things that really help you connect with a client to where the relationship evolves beyond just transactional and really becomes human and you become a trusted partner. So that was the case in a corporate setting. But personally, I've always been the type of person who enjoys conversation. I enjoy small talk, honestly. It's something that I don't mind and that I can easily partake in. And one of the conversations I had this week with a classmate was about the golden retriever energy of it all and the black cat energy. And a lot of times you'll find people that might have a more golden retriever social personality with a more like black cat, Addams family, just more of like that introverted, secluded, moody energy. And I find that really interesting because I do think, we need both energies to balance. I don't think there's any such thing as a 100% extrovert or a 100% introvert. I believe we all have sides. It's a spectrum. So, myself, I definitely skew on the side of an extrovert. However, I very much enjoy time to myself, just like the next person. A lot of people don't believe me, but I do. I'm also an only child, so spending time alone is something I'm really comfortable with. I love solo travel. I love just spending time alone, that's when I feel like I can get really creative and I can get really imaginative. I also think that when people are introverts, you still need human connection to live. I'm sorry. At the end of the day, we are social creatures. So even the most introverted person needs some kind of human connection, whether they realize it or not. So, with that being said, where does that leave us? What am I even talking about today? I'm talking about the art of conversation. So, when it goes back to my experience at Meta, at that time, Facebook, again, the relationship that you had with you and your client was extremely important. So, we're going to keep that over here on this side. So, now I'm getting in the process of crowdfunding for my first short film. If you guys listen to previous episodes, you know that I have technically done a short film before, but it was very experimental. I want to call it more of a project than a short film. Like, this is my first short film where I'm writing a script, actors will be acting out the scenes, and there's levels to this, right? So it needs a budget. Like, I want to pay people, I want to have nice equipment, I want to have nice set design. So that's relevant. Crowdfunding is a thing, sales is a thing. I was talking to a cousin earlier this week, again, on the conversation tip. She was checking in with me about my graduation plans and just making sure her timing was right. She asked, what do I want for graduation? I also had another friend ask me, what do I want for graduation? And I've already started to point to the fact that I'm going to have this crowdfunding campaign. And if you want to give me something for graduation, just donate to the campaign. That's my ask, right? But it had me thinking about fundraising in general, because being at business school, I'm around a lot of founders and people who are building businesses from the ground up. Something that I have been talking about on TikTok has been building from zero and being okay with starting at zero. And I think that's really important. And it's relevant for the sales world at Meta and relevant for the film world with crowdfunding and working in indie film. So, with that being said, the common thread that I see through this is the relationships you have with people. So, in last week's episode, we were talking about surface area and how it's important to expand that. But today, we're talking a little bit more about how do you actually do that. Maybe you get in the room, you're standing in a room full of people. What next? Like, what do you say? What do you even do? And this is something that I've been thinking about this week, because I have found myself in so many different conversations. There's a wide range of people that I know in New York. I know people from my grad school program, from a fellowship I did right after undergrad, from friends from Texas who moved to New York. So this week I found myself having just a wide range of conversation. And I really appreciate it, because I feel like I can get a very wide worldview and sense of what's going on, And I would say grad school at NYU has made my friend group the most diverse it's ever been, and I'm really grateful for that. And I'm able to just see a lot of different perspectives of what is going on in people's life. And I think that's really important because, again, it helps you build the relationship. It helps you understand this person and know what drives them, what do they care about. Again, this is important for a tech sales job, just like it's important for an indie filmmaker. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, whether you're in a corporate job or a creative job, you're going to need to build buy-in. You're going to need to get people on your side, whether that's to push a agenda within your corporation or job for an initiative or a project. You're going to need people to rally behind you and support you, or you're going to need people to rally behind and support you in your fundraising campaign. So I say all this to say that the conversation aspect of relationship building is extremely important, and I think it's something that we don't talk about enough. And I think sometimes when you see extroverts and people who like to spend a lot of time outside mixing, mingling, it can often really be seen as, young and turnt or silly and goofy. Oh, she just loved a party, which those things are very true. I'm silly and goofy and I do love to party. But there's something deeper that I think comes with being a very social person. It's kind of like the Real Housewives thing. Some people think that Real Housewives is like trash TV or things like that. But at the end of the day, you're getting insight into the zeitgeist. You're getting insight into what's happening culturally in the world and a very clear view of social hierarchy and dynamics. So, whenever you're outside, whether it's a happy hour or a night out or a movie day, you're getting insight into the zeitgeist. You are understanding what's going on in the world culturally. And the more conversations you're able to have, the more you're able to understand and make your own analysis on what is going on in the world. And I think it's really important to do that in spaces that you are comfortable in and ones that might be more of a stretch goal for you. Because at the end of the day, that's practicing the art of conversation. What is conversating? What is conversation? And I would say it's an exchange. And some people don't like the idea of small talk. They want to get straight to the deep things. They want to talk about life. They want to talk about conspiracy theories, stars, signs, religion, politics. They want to get right into it, which I think is super fair. I do think there's some times where it's like, let's cut to the chase and let's see what you're about. However, I think that small talk is not, it's not small. The details of somebody's life is what makes their life. So when you're asking Jim at work about his son's soccer game, it might seem insignificant, but it's really not. Him watching his son play this sport could be the most important thing to him, and you'll never know if you don't ask. Somebody might really care about the weather. Like, I know talking about the weather can be so like facetious sometimes. It can feel like, okay, whatever. But if it's raining outside, let's discuss. Do you like the rain? What does it make you think about? Do you have a memory with the rain? Like, does your hair have low porosity or high porosity? I don't know. But the small things I just really think are the big things. And I think if you know how to address that with people and make space for them to feel comfortable to share the somewhat intimate details of their life through small talk, I think that can open up so many doors for you in ways that you wouldn't even imagine. So with conversation, I just believe there's layers to it and levels to it. And a couple of things that I like to consider whenever I am like entering into a mixer or even just spending time catching up with a friend. Some people don't even realize this, but asking questions is so important. Whenever I was at Meta, part of our training, whenever we were learning about discovery calls, was try to make it through 30 minutes with just asking questions. Like, find another question to ask. And I think that that is really profound because you can always dig a little deeper. You can always learn a little bit more about someone's point of view, someone's emotional response to something, or just someone's life. There's always another follow-up question to ask, and you never know what lies on the other side of that question. And that's why during this week, there were times I was like, okay, I'm going to go study or I'm going to go work on my crowdfunding campaign. And I would run into someone, whether it's a friend or a classmate, or I happen to be in the same area as someone. And we start conversating. And I might have had other priorities ahead of running into this conversation, but I still had the flexibility to let that dialogue flow. And yes, maybe I was a little late for something on the back end or I missed a window of time to get some work done. but the quality of those relationships and really being able to connect with what the people in my life, whether it's a classmate or a close friend, that is really meaningful to me because life changes so fast. I believe that conversations are ways to keep yourself grounded, and whenever you're really engaged, allows you to feel really connected to that moment and hold it as a memory. There are conversations that I have had with friends, both pleasant and maybe not as pleasant, but I'll always remember them. And it's because we were really in that moment and engaged with one another. And I believe that's a very important part of the human experience. So, introvert or extrovert, deep conversation or small talk, it's all extremely important and effective, is essentially what I'm trying to say. Whether you're talking about the weather with Jane or debriefing some crazy childhood experience that you never thought you would share with someone, those are the fabric of our life because we are humans, we're social creatures, and the way that we engage with one another is by communicating. And I think in today's day and age, with the AI of it all, with the social media of it all, a lot of us have lost the art of conversation. COVID did a number on us. And for people who are already a little bit more introverted, the social anxiety that the pandemic brought about, it was crippling to a lot of people and still remains a challenge to this day. I have friends that express to me often about just like it's still a little weird for them in certain situations, still feel a little awkward. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever people are talking about going out or dating, it can be really difficult for people to feel like they're connecting and that they're finding relationships. I think that's why a lot of events now are eventized. You know, it's harder for people to say, let's all link up at the park today. It's usually like, okay, I'm throwing a park event and there's this, that, and the third. And then we're going to have intentional spaces to connect and you can meet new people. And I think having things like that is really important. But I think there's a gap because so many things are eventized, standardized, and realize. But no, a lot of events are super thought out, and so there's not that room for spontaneity to strike up a conversation with a classmate that you like are seeing on the street because you might be rushing to the next, yoga event and this, that, and the third. And I guess this week, something that I was able to really sit in and enjoy is a lot of the conversations that I wasn't expecting to have during the week, but I did because I either ran into a friend or me and someone saw each other's location. We're in the same neighborhood. Let's catch up. Let's chat. And another thing that I did today was like spend the whole day with a friend, and we were just like bopping between a birthday party or chilling in the park or a dinner. And then I caught up with some other friends at this lounge afterwards, and being able to do that and spend the whole day connecting, talking, sharing, I believe that's really, really profound, and it's becoming a lost art because of the way a lot of our schedules are set up. And I'm speaking about this from the perspective of someone who lives in New York, where things are super, super stylized and eventized. Depending on where people are listening from, it may or may not be the same in your city. But it's just something to consider, embracing more of those spontaneous conversations, whether you're in grad school or if you're in the workforce. The moral of this podcast is to really engage with that small talk in a way where you're seeing it beyond like what's the weather today or how's Charlie, and you're really connecting on a one-to-one, because those connections and touch points make life feel more real. And they're also a skill. I think with the AI of it all, something that a friend and I were talking about this week, we were having a difference in opinion on what AI is going to do for the entertainment industry. I took what we discussed in that conversation and brought it to a new one where I was like, yeah, I'm more of an idealist when it comes to how AI is going to change the entertainment industry. He was more of a pessimist. And then one thing I was saying was the world has always gone through intense periods of innovation and things that we've never seen before. So AI is similar to the car, is similar to the TV, and in the way that it changed industries and obliterated. I do understand that AI is a completely different game just because of the speed of how the technology is moving, and like we've already had the industrial revolution. So how much is going to change? The friend I was talking to then said like we've had the industrial revolution. AI and all of these things are bringing on a intellectual revolution. And I thought that was really profound because that is what is happening. The way we engage with each other is changing. The computers are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for mathematics, coding, and things of that nature. So, what's going to be your skill set? What are you going to bring to the workforce or your film set? It's going to be how you think, it's going to be how you connect with others. That's going to be the driving force for a lot of the skilled labor in work, in school, and in entertainment, in my opinion. And small talk is part of that. Being able to connect with others, being able to conversate, being able to build a relationship. Those are the ways that you get through business. No matter what industry you're doing, business is creating value through a series of relationships. That's it. I think it's grown into this complex web of so many other things, but when you boil it down to its core, business creates value through relationships, whether that's an owner with their customer, a client with their patient, a doctor with their patient. It's all a relationship. And even with filmmakers, it's the relationship to your audience, who's supporting you, who's rooting for you, and why. You have to know how to talk to them and communicate what you want from them, what you need from them, and what value you're bringing to them. You as a person need to know how to speak to your value and what you're quote unquote bringing to the table in professional settings, in personal settings, in creative settings, everywhere. Communication is key. And it's just something that is becoming such a lost art with the digital of it all, the social media of it all, the silent disco of it all, you know? And I think that there are a lot of good things that come with technology, and there's a lot of things to just consider and consider adjusting with technology. But the moral of the story, again, for this week is engage in the art of conversation. Consider how you talk with the people in your life. What kind of conversations are you having? What conversations would you like to have? Journal about it, talk about it, make a podcast about it. But I just want to encourage everybody who's listening to think about that a little bit, because it's really important. It's something to be mindful of because our world is changing, but at the end of the day, we're still human for now. So we need to know how to talk to each other and engage with each other. And it's hard these days because everything is hard and social batteries are depleted. But think about, calling a friend that you maybe need to catch up with, or sitting in the park with someone and trying to go 30 minutes with just asking questions and see what happens. You never know. You might learn something new about a friend or deepen a relationship. So that's all for today's episode on the art of conversation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to see in the comments if you are going to go out this week and have a conversation with someone that maybe you've been avoiding, or maybe having a conversation with someone that you're looking forward to getting to know better, or maybe somebody who's in the line at your local cafe. You never know. And that's what I will leave you with today. Looking forward to the next episode of Film School Dropout, and I'll talk to you soon, guys. Bye.